So when did you start saying, I should write a book?
Well, people have said it for years. My clients have said it for years. And I enjoy writing. So I would write parts down. I had kind of a skeleton. I had started working on the first couple of chapters, but I would dabble in it when I felt so inspired. So years had gone by. And then when COVID hit, my thought was, well, what do I do in this time? I'm home. I'm not going to be able to do anything really socially. How do I use this time? And my thought was, well, let me create some online programs, which I did on communication and on couples communication. And then I taught some workshops. And then someone who I was the very first person I was on her podcast because I was wanting to promote my online program said to me, "You're a natural speaker. Have you ever thought of being a speaker?" And I said, "Well, I speak all the time." She said, "Have you ever thought about being a speaker?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, kind of, but not really." And she said, "I think you should do a TEDx." I said, "Oh." And so she said, "Would you like me to introduce you to someone who I did a TEDx with?" I said, "Sure." So then I met Caesar and really enjoyed him and thought, yeah, I'm going to do this because I have lots of ideas.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, they say, we know where Canada is in British Columbia on the west coast, right? Right. And then there is a big city called Vancouver, right? We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our friends in Europe, 800 kilometers. And that puts us in the center of British Columbia. North, south, east to west, a big, big province. And so we have lots of timber. Within 50 miles, we've probably got 100 lakes. And we have lots of friends in nature, black bears, grizzly bears, deer, moose, caribou, you name it, we have it all here. It is, I call, paradise. Today, a very, very special guest, Dr. Heather Browne. And Heather is a friend. And so I podcasted her before. Very, very interesting life and very, very interesting podcast. In particular, Heather helps people recognize the power of communications, a favorite topic for me as well. As a relationships expert, Dr. Heather has worked with thousands of individuals and couples psychotherapy. She is a TEDx and a keynote speaker published in hundreds of journals. She is an author, a speaker. Dr. Heather, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It is always such an absolute treat to be with you and to hear your wisdom and to have the opportunity to converse and see where it goes.
I love it, and I see over your left shoulder you got your book. I have a
I
copy of that, and I have not read the whole thing, but Scott has been reading it, and he likes it, and I'm going to start with it as well. I've read a little bit of it, but it's a very, very good one. And
He wrote me the most lovely email and said, "We've got to get you back. I love this. There is so much in this book." I thought, oh, what a treat that you had shared it with him. So thank you very much.
yes, and that is important. And I'm working on one as well now on communications that comes out in June, and I'll keep you informed on it before we send
Please,
it out. So
please.
tell us, the guests watching us from around the world. You were my podcast, I believe, 240, Scott. 240, yeah. And so now we are at 392 podcasts where I'm hosting, and then I'm guesting on probably around 200, 250. So I've been also busy,
You
and
were always busy.
I like it.
Yes.
So, uh, Heather, tell us about, our guest about, tell us about your past. How did you get to where you are, and in particular, as a relationship expert and obviously communications as being one of the topics you feel very, very strongly about. You've written about it, you speak about it. Tell us about how did you get there, and where are you now, and what are you doing now in terms of interacting with clients?
For the viewers who saw me on the first time I was invited on, it'll be a little bit of a repeat. So
It's
please
good.
humor me with that. Some people won't have heard it. So I grew up in a family with a mom who was a paranoid schizophrenic.
Oof.
And when you live with someone who's mentally unstable, it's a very different experience as a child, because for you that is normal until you realize it's not the same in other people's worlds. But from having that perspective of mom is mom, and this is what we deal with, it gave me the reality that that's an option, and it's also a choice. I can see or try to comprehend that your reality is your reality, though it's very different than mine, and we can coexist with different realities. The challenge that we have so much in life is we demand other people to have ours, and we believe that they should, or there's something wrong with them, or they don't love us if they don't live in our reality. But no one really lives in our reality, and there's no way to know if you even did, because it's inside our own experience. So from that, I started to realize we engage in the world very differently than I kind of had to learn to engage with the world as a child. And I started to see that more and more and more and more as a way to embrace the world more so than negate it or attack it or belittle it. And so as life continued as it does, I kept being drawn into situations where I was supporting, where I was helping, kept counselor, working in a group home. It just became more and more present. And then eventually I realized God slammed me on the side of the head one day and he said, instead of pretending to be someone you're not, how about you help people be who they are to be? I was working in theater at the time, and it was the most beautiful answer. And so that is what I stepped into. And I was very, very blessed to have a wonderful master's school that supported me, great internship. I've been blessed to have absolutely beautiful clients. I was married for 20 years. Today would actually be my 31st anniversary if my husband hasn't passed. So it's a special day for me that I get to share it with you and your
Wow.
listeners.
Wow.
And he was a huge part of that journey too, learning how to communicate with a partner and how to do life and raise children and do your career and all of that. So everything that I've been through has been part of it. And that led up to the TEDx and the book and lots of podcasts and journals and news shows. So it's been a beautiful, beautiful journey. And I love working with individuals. I love working with couples. Um, it's been an incredible opportunity.
Now, you live in Southern California in Orange
Mhm.
County, and so do you, which is a beautiful area, and fortunately, we were talking about it just a little bit before we started the show. I asked you how was it affected by the storms and the fires, and fortunately, it didn't. But the place that you were born, or where you worked, yeah, where you were born, was it where was
The
that?
high school,
The high
the high school
school.
was Pali High, Pacific
Yeah,
Palisades. I lived there in an apartment for a couple of years
right,
when I was in the group home. Um, my my first church where I was married.
right.
So very close to that area, and that was the area that was really one of the areas that was really destroyed. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they doing something now? Because the storms are happen every year, different times every year. But this last one was eerie, scary because we watched it around the world, obviously, as it happened and felt horrible about the people being affected. But it was the power of fire is
Well, and
unbelievable.
that was what was shocking about this. The
Right.
winds were horrific.
Yeah.
And so the firemen they literally could not go up, we were told, in the helicopters. So they were just waiting for the winds to die down. And I know I'm quite a bit south, and it was horrible here. And
Yeah.
that was what they were saying, is that we always have fires, but the winds combined with that is what just took it to catastrophic.
And
Yeah.
that will happen again, right? So because that happens virtually every year somewhere in California, and it appears more and more, even close to Hollywood, where the fires were. And then is it the brush, or are they doing more about that, or is it the forest? There is not much forest there, is there?
No, not where I am. No, the area that Palisades, that was structural.
Right,
They have beautiful yards and gardens and things like
right,
that, but it's not overgrown. It was a very, very prestigious, beautiful area.
right.
Something caused it, and then the winds were huge. And what they said is it was the spark fly.
Yeah.
Sparks would just fly everywhere and they
They
land.
they do, right? Because we have here forest fires that can happen very very quickly and grow very fast. Fortunately,
Yeah.
everything, relatively speaking, they're starting to rebuild as much as they can. Probably it will take time, a couple of years, and before they get things back to a sense of normal. But otherwise, California is a beautiful, beautiful place, especially Southern California, San Diego, North, and then where you are, Orange County, and all the other places. So tell us a little bit more about then, so what you're doing now, is that mainly virtual, or is it also person to person, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both.
Okay.
It was primarily live before COVID,
Yeah.
and then COVID, of course, changed the world. And now I'm probably, I'm going to say 3/4 live and a quarter virtual. And the people who are virtual are people who either are distance, or their lifestyles just make that where it's more accessible. I have some people who um, have some health issues. And so for them, or people who have little teeny tiny children. And so for them. And so it's a little combination of both. I'm blessed to be able to do both. There's a lot of therapists that have never gone back to their office. And I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to do whichever serves my clients better.
The amazing part, Heather, is, and you are doing it, I'm doing it, podcasting has become, especially, and I've been involved in it for 5, 6, 7 years, where first I started blogging, then interacting in different ways, then working with local television stations, doing people from the area, and then we had to, then the next thing happened. COVID came and we couldn't use the studios anymore, and so we had to find another way. And then I invested in this apartment downtown Prince George, and saying, well, I was thinking about it at one point to get a bigger circle. Maybe I should have set up another office in Vancouver to access more people. And then we said, well, why not? Why not start a studio right here ourselves and start podcasting from here? So that's what we did. And then we also interacted with Podmatch, which is interesting because Podmatch mixes people together from virtually around the world and brings suitable, likewise candidates together, and different ones for that matter. So we have been using that, and since the time, we have really, really expanded. And now the amazing part about podcasting is that here I'm sitting with you. You are in Orange County, Southern California, and I'm in Central British Columbia, and it feels like you're sitting right next to me.
Yeah. And
And
we met on Podmatch.
and
That's
we
where
did.
I was with you. Yes.
Yeah, and we it could well be in a week. I may have somebody from Australia, somebody from Central Europe, somebody from North America, wherever, and so it is just. And then the whole thing around podcasting, and it's the new social media, and the new media that is becoming increasingly more popular, and it's still only at its infancy. It's exploding around the globe and around the world. So I find it amazing, and then technology obviously has got to the point where at one point when we would be watching television, we'll watch a lot of U.S. Television stations as well. You see them with 1, 2, 3, 4 different people from all over the world. Used to have all kinds of little clip blicks in it here and there, but now it's virtually seamless. And that obviously is the way to interact, and podcasting has become the vehicle.
Well, for me, it's been an absolutely enjoyable experience because I get to meet people like you and learn from your experience, living in a different country, different life that we've had, then also the listeners and the people who then reach out or connect and want to speak with me about coaching, or if they know somebody in California or Florida. So for me, it's been fascinating because it has allowed me to engage with people that I never would,
Yeah.
and then have opportunities to then go to other podcasts or be involved in summits. Some speaking opportunities have come from it. Some coaching clients have come from it. Some psychotherapy clients have come from it. So for me, it's just been a beautiful way. Plus, I have your books and I've read your book. So I've learned from so much of your wisdom, especially with the ADHD book. That's one that I suggest in my practice. So it's just a beautiful way of supporting other people that you respect and that you care for, to help support their flock and vice versa. And I find that absolutely beautiful.
And
Yeah.
building a relationship, really, because we, even in between podcasting, we have interacted either through our books or watching your podcast or my podcast. And so it develops relationships that last. And
Yes.
and I find that amazing. And so now with the book, so this is the one, writing books is not easy. And
No.
and a lot of people, they think about writing a book, and I encourage people to do that if they feel like it. But it is very rewarding, but at the same time, do not expect that it goes easy and quick, and that everybody will buy it. It takes time to a design the book in terms of, and I love the title and the front page of your book.
Thank you.
Very unique. Then it becomes a question of style, of and font, and then should there be pictures and all of those kind of things. So when did you start saying I should write a book?
Well, people have said it for years. My clients have said it for years, and I enjoy writing. So I would write parts down. I had kind of a skeleton. I had started working on the first couple of chapters, but I would dabble in it when I felt so inspired. So years had gone by, and then when COVID hit, my thought was, well, what do I do in this time? I'm home. I'm not going to be able to do anything really socially. How do I use this time? And my thought was, well, let me create some online programs, which I did on communication and on couples communication. And then I taught some workshops. And then someone who I was, the very first person I was on her podcast, because I was wanting to promote my online program, said to me, "You're a natural speaker. Have you ever thought of being a speaker?" And I said, "Well, I speak all the time." She said, "Have you ever thought about being a speaker?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, kind of, but not really." And she said, "I think you should do a TEDx." I said, "Oh." And so she said, "Would you like me to introduce you to someone who I did a TEDx with?" I said, "Sure." So then I met Caesar and really enjoyed him and thought, yeah, I'm going to do this because I have lots of ideas. And I talked about loneliness and depression and creating love.
So just a quick question. So for our guests watching us from around the world,
Mm.
I know what it is, but just to explain, what is TEDx?
TEDx is a speaking opportunity where you audition and you're selected, And it's the idea that you have an idea that's worth spreading, and you have a way to challenge, but also uplift the community, the environment, the world with a unique idea. And I love that. So I wrote one. I auditioned many times. I was selected. And then while I was in the process of preparing for the TEDx, I met a book coach, Ashley Mansour, and she said, "This is your book." And I said, "Oh, no, no, no. I'm in the middle of a TEDx. I don't have time to write a book. I'll do that later." And she said, "No, it's part of the process." And as I sat with that, I thought, really it is, because my book is going to be about what I talk about in the TEDx, but in a much more complete, full, rich, beautiful place. And so that became part of it. And as you know, it takes a lot of time and a lot of research.
Yeah.
And I loved the process. And I'm really proud of what is shared and how people have been blessed by it. I did a little uniquely because my viewpoint is I wanted people to feel like they were sitting with me in my office. And so I wrote it as if I am talking to you, in coaching, in therapy. And then there's also exercises with almost every single chapter. And then I walk you through the exercises. If you look at a lot of communication books, if you look at a lot of relationship books, they tell you what to do and then they leave you to do it.
Right.
And most of us don't, or we don't quite know how. And that's why we're really coming to the book for the how, not so much the what.
Right.
And so my thought was, let me do that. And so I walk through the exercises, talk about the challenges that I foresee could come up, and try to soften that to help people have a better experience. And people have been really pleased, which has been a beautiful experience for me.
So, from my experience, is that I was not good at communications. In fact, I lacked confidence. And then the other part about it is that, to a certain extent, maybe English is not my language that I grew up with. I had to acquire it. I grew up in northeastern Holland. Actually, I was born in 1940, so that makes me 84 years young. And during the Second World War, saw far too much that I should not have seen and that we should not have seen. Things were difficult. Hunger and fear and anxiety was all part of that. My mom and dad were married in 1938 and were in love. And Holland was beautiful. It was paradise for them. They rented a beautiful little house. My dad got a job at a lumber factory. And so very quickly they had two children, a boy and a girl. And then in early 1940, my mom was pregnant with me. And then my dad, was doing well in his job. And then a fellow, a dictator by the name of Adolf Hitler, decided that Poland should be part of Germany. And he invaded Poland and created all kinds of problems and issues and moved further into Eastern Europe, and then at the same time decided to start attacking Western Europe, Holland and all those countries there. And so my dad then was called into the Dutch army in April of 1940. And so the last time somebody saw him was just before Rotterdam was bombed, and for 5 years they would not know if he lived or died. And so my mom with two kids then, little kids, and then being pregnant with me, I was born November the 1st, 1940, and so she had no idea for all those years if he lived or died. And the first thing that I remember is hundreds of planes overhead when the Allied forces started bombing the army infrastructure of the Germans, especially in northwestern Germany, where it touches the North Sea, and that we were about 10, 15 minutes away from that in Holland. And so my mom would take us, and hundreds of planes in the air, and I still remember that. Bombers, a sound I will never hear again, but I can still, as then about a 3.5 year old, I still remember the sound. And my mom would take us outside on the flat roof behind our house to not watch the planes, but she felt safer outside than inside. And in the distance, we could see the cities burning, like Emden, Wilhelmshaven, Kiel, Hamburg, all those areas. The sky was red in the distance, and planes were coming back or going, and so it was fearful. And then the next thing I remember is 1944. All the food was cut off by the Germans into Holland, and lots of kids died. Lots of older people that were vulnerable also died, and thousands of them. And so, I remember that. And as kids, my brother, my sister, and myself, we used to go, even at 4.5 years old, we would go into in railroad yards with gunny sacks, pick up anything edible and burnable. And so that's what we did every day. And the reason that we did, because they wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, and we'd be back the following day. And then April the 12th, 1945, I remember we were liberated by the Canadian Army, actually, and it made such an impression on me that I knew from that point forward, when I grew up, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And
Oh, that is
so,
beautiful.
yeah, and so it always stayed with me. And obviously, then the Allied forces that landed in Normandy, the U.S. Army and Canadians and other countries together went into Normandy to liberate Europe, and the Canadian Army went to the north through France, Belgium, the western part of Holland, and pushed the Germans out of the north where we lived, and things got pretty rough. We saw far too much that we should not have seen, and it always left an impression with me. And so,
Well, it made you. It
yes,
made you
it
on
did.
so many levels, being so passionate, being so driven,
Right.
utilizing every possible resource that you have, looking for ways to support, uplift, strengthen, empower. It's made so much, that desire to live, that desire to thrive, that desire to do everything with excellence and to utilize time well and your resources well and your body and your mind well. The importance of connection with other people, the importance of love. So much of what you've been through, family, loyalty, commitment, so much of what you've been through speaks to who you are as a man, as a husband, as a business owner, as a physical fitness guru. It speaks to who you are. And I
Yeah.
think that is the beauty. That is the beauty and the opportunity of life. Do you let where you have come from, however horrific, however beautiful, all be a part of who you are and what you do? I think there's people in the world who fight everything, and then there's people in the world who largely embrace. And there's a place for us to be both. Sometimes we do really have to fight, but sometimes the fight is within the self. And when you recognize that, then there's the place to say, okay, so how do I help myself beyond what this is? How do I help myself beyond what this reality is, to find something that is more honoring, is more serving, does offer more potential? And I think that's a place where you have absolutely thrived and are such an incredible role model to people of all ages. It's part of the reason why I so enjoy you as a person, um, because your life is extraordinary because you make it so.
Right. So
And that's beautiful.
the foundation very much, Heather, is, as you indicated, even from your own life and the challenges you had when you were younger and grew up in a challenging situation, is that for me, it became attitude, passion, work ethic, and but it always stayed with me. And even seeing far too much that we should not have seen, PTSD still very much part of me. The inner child. In fact, I got the fear of losing the only parent that was around us, because everybody had the same issues. Is the fear of that, getting counseling for that part of my life. When in my 50s, very emotional, but it changed things for me in a way to do that, and but it always stayed as part of me, and so
It
the
always will. It is
and,
too. And I mean, it's
yeah,
part of the reason why you were brought onto this earth.
exactly.
We're not brought on just to have life be beautiful and lovely. We're also, I feel, brought on to experience, to hopefully find other outcomes, solutions, possibilities than only what is there. That to me, that's the power of the human being. I'm
Yes,
in this. What does Heather, what does John, what does Susie, what does France do to let this be beyond what this is? That
exactly,
to me is what art is. I have a
exactly.
piece of clay. Well, what do I impress upon this piece of clay to become something beyond what it is without my touch? And that might sound rather egotistical, but I think validly so. This is our life. And what is it that you choose to make of that? And what is important to you? Because whenever our day comes, when it's our last breath, it will have been our life. And there's the place of, what did you do with this? Did you enjoy this? Did you relish it? Did you treasure it?
And
What was important to you? Was it nature? Was it people? Was it work? Was it family? Was it travel? What was important to you? And did you let yourself celebrate that? And if
yeah,
that's someone wanting to live on the top of a mountain in seclusion and they find peace and meaning and wonder there, bless them.
yeah.
If that's someone who is writing books and reaching out to the world and growing in followers and sharing, bless you. But that's the question within. Why do I choose to be here, and what do I do with this time that I am here?
And the interesting part about it, Heather, is that the feeling as you did, how did you share it with others, and some of these experiences, and the treasure that we have is because we are very, very fortunate in North America, US, Canada, and I fly around a lot. We do a lot of businesses in the United States as well as in Canada. And every time I fly around, commercially, I'm a pilot as well, but mainly commercial, then I sit by the window because I look outside and I say it's paradise, because I know from my experience what it can be if I look back to the time that war was all over Europe, and fortunately the Allied forces came and helped us to defeat the German armies, but not only that, the Marshall Plan that followed in 1947 to repair and invest into Europe, bring it back to where it is today, made all the difference. And so when I fly around, I look around North America and saying, how lucky we are. That, and then at the same time realizing, because I was there in war, and look at the Ukraine and Eastern Europe and the things that are happening there. I look at the Middle East, the things that are happening there, Africa and a lot of places, or South America, Venezuela, and all the other dictatorships, and saying how lucky we are. And then at the same time, I've always looked at the United States in particular as being the leader of the free world, and based on their constitution that starts with three words: we the people. And so that has been the power of freedom in the world. The troubling part that I see today, however, that even that part can be challenged, and hopefully that the people will say, no, we want to be who we are based on we the people, the Constitution in North America as we have it now, and the relationship between Canada, the United States, and Mexico together have so many resources together that they can be leading the world and create opportunity that we have seen. Let's hope that we can do that, and then help and stimulate other parts of the world that need our help, to assist them in all the challenges that are there. But wars will always be part of that in other parts of the world, unfortunately. Maybe the Middle East, maybe Africa, maybe South America. Let's hope that we still can, on this beautiful area we call North America, that we can work closely together and freedom, and share it with others around the world. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, there's so much ahead. There's so much ahead, and there's so much change ahead. And it really comes to, do we pull together or do we pull apart? And I think we're seeing that all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the other part about it that I found important, and you did likely the same, as I said when I started this last one, I went through my life, is that I was not a good communicator. And so I did not, academically, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And then my parents were beautiful people. And then people said to them, what are you going to do with this guy? And then they said, and friends and other people said, send them to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So I was 12 and a half years old when the last time I failed again in grade 7. And so my dad got me a job from a friend at a furniture factory, and said he has to find a career where he can work with his hands. And obviously he's not bright enough. They didn't say that, but other people said, hey, it's too dumb, it's too stupid, blah, blah, blah. All those kids are hard on each other. And so, when the third time I failed grade 7, all my friends that were with me went to college and university, and I became a laborer. But I'm proud of that today, but then it was kind of looked down on. But a lot of times during that period, I felt, who am I? And why am I different? And so the dream of going to Canada for me was important, because it allowed me to start over again. And then the other dream that I had, because my grandfather was a master carpenter, my dad worked in lumber, and I liked lumber, and I wanted to build a lumber mill. And so my dream was to go to Canada to build a lumber mill, and obviously the timber is in Western Canada in British Columbia, so I knew I wanted to go to British Columbia, so I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. My God, that is a long way. So then I arrived in Vancouver, went through the immigration office, couldn't speak English, obviously, and fortunately there was a German fellow there. I could speak some German, and I told him what I want to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George. That's where they're building lumber, 1965, July 65.
Oh.
And so I took the Greyhound bus, and I can still see it here where the Greyhound station was. And I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I had, my suitcase with me, and with that, and then I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. And could speak language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job, but I had attitude. I've always, even when everybody said, well, he doesn't, blah, 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 I was always had positive feeling about that. I was no better than, but just as smart as the others. So attitude to me always was important, still is today. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic, even today, I work harder than anybody. I get up at, even today, I get up at 5:30, and I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late. And so, and that's what I do, and I love it. And so, but even then, already when I came off the bus, he was nothing. Started as a cleanup man in the lumber mill. Within a year and a half, was a supervisor and a superintendent of one of the biggest lumber mills here in this area. And then within 2 years, I started at an option on buying 1/3 of a lumber mill here, and so that didn't go fast enough for me. And then in 1975, after I'd been here for 10 years, I started a company called Brink Forest Products, which is now part of the Brink group of companies. It's not about me and success, but we have 10 different companies, and But a lot of people said to me, I still had problems interacting and communicating, and so I could with maybe 3 or 4 people in my own companies, but not beyond that. And so, and then a friend and the sister of my ex-wife, she invited me to. She said, "Go with me to an organization called Toastmasters." I said,
Wonderful organization.
I never heard of
Yeah.
it. And so I said, "Are you going to ask me any questions?" He said, "No, you just sit there and watch it." I did, and then during the middle of the meeting, somebody said, "Hey, John, tell us all about you." And I said, "Oh my God, I'll never go back here." But I did. I stayed there for 10 years and became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level you can be. And for our guests watching us, if you Google it, Toastmasters are all over the world, mainly from North America, but very useful for the public speaking. But it's not only about that. It's more about listening, thinking, and speaking on your feet, and then preparing presentations and other things. So that helped me in terms of I had the foundation already, and a lot of people had talked to me say, "You're so successful, you should write a book." Well, again, as we said earlier, writing books is not easier. And so for many years, I started and stopped and started and stopped as you did. And then I knew 6 years ago when I was already in my mid-70s, if I don't do it now, I will never happen. So I wrote, and you got a copy of this, Against All Odds. And it's not about how successful John is, but all the ups and downs along the way. And then from there and then I wrote a number of other ones. But the other
But
part,
that's the key to
yes,
communication
yes,
is how do I connect with you? How do you connect with me when we view things differently, have had different lives, have had different experiences, have different talents, have different challenges? So I think you actually are an excellent communicator because you came from a place that was so challenging, different language, different culture, and have learned and mastered and applied to be able to grow beyond. To me, that's the key of communication. It's important that I try to connect with you, and I'm going to try to in every way that is possible. Because to me, without the connection piece, you don't really know what you have. And to me, that is the challenge that we have so often in this world. I'm going to say words at you, and I think they're going to land. My whole premise in communication is to start with compassion, build connection, and then from that move into communicating. And
exactly.
when we do that, it's a completely different experience because you release a lot of the fear, you release a lot of the anxiety, you have a desired outcome together. And it's the togetherness that is most important for the world to thrive. It's critical that we find a way to live together on this earth for us to coexist. And so to me, that's what you've done incredibly well. And I believe the reason why there was a lot to learn there and explore there was because that is what is so important. And your life shows that. It might not just come easy. It might not just come quickly. How do you help yourself through that and beyond? And how do I help myself learn to try in whatever ways I can, speak with you, share with you, care about you, resolve with you, so that we're both a part of this relationship, so we're both a part of this communication. And I think you've done that extraordinarily well, and I think you continue to. Yeah.
Yeah, the challenge for me was more so than anything else. It took me longer than it was not until Toastmasters. And then the other part is that I already was here for 32 years, and so 1967 I was successful, and everybody said, "Oh, you're so successful," and blah blah blah. And then I walked into a bookstore here, and I picked up a book, and I still don't know why I did. The book that I picked up is this one. I'm not going to say the title yet, but it's on the other side. But I picked up this book, and I don't know why I picked it up. And as I did, the title to this is the actual book. It was, and I wrote in the book the date actually January 1997, and the book is Driven to Distraction, and it was about ADHD. And I went through the book while I was standing in the store there, and I couldn't let go of it. And I thought, oh my God, this is me. And then the guy that owned the store said, when are we going to buy it? Are we going to, he didn't. I'm just being funny. But in any event, I wrote in the book, obviously I bought it, and I wrote in the book in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am, because it implied that it is a mental defect of some sort. And so I wrote in there, now I finally know who I am, January 1997. Now the interesting part about it is that the book was written by Dr. Edward Hollowell, medical doctor, professor. He has written 18 books, 5 on distraction, recognized around the world actually for his writing in regards to mental diversities, and he is ADHD and dyslexia. So am I.
Wow.
And then the other part interesting about it, Heather, is that Dr. Hollowell, now you are my podcast number 392. My podcast 203 was with Dr. Hollowell.
Oh, how fantastic.
Can you believe it? He wrote this book in 1993. I
Changed your
bought
life.
it in 1997, and it changed my life. There
I
is
can't
no
say that.
question about that.
That's the kind of person you are. You celebrate others in their victories. You uplift others in their experience. You want the best for others. So, on the one hand, that seems unheard of. And on the other hand, I say, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because you are someone to be incredibly grateful, thankful, appreciative, and I'm sure I'm sure it was a beautiful experience to speak with him and meet with him and be with him and to share how he had massively changed your life, and what a gift for him. It's like when a client reaches back out to me after 25 years and says, "Hey, I just wanted to share. I'm married and my kids are thriving and I'm doing well." I'm like a happy little mom. It's beautiful to know that you have impressed someone and changed their lives. And
Yeah,
he did that for you in an extraordinarily way, in a way that no one else had, well, until you recognized it within his words. And how beautiful that is.
and
Yeah,
and
that's
and so the other
wonderful.
part that it did, Heather, is that it reconciled the question for me: who am I? And then the other part about it is that I have an obligation, I believe, and I love it, to share it with others. in terms of at least my history, the foundation, and why it is so important to reconcile who are you, and then the other part, I do a lot of presenting to younger people, either high schools, colleges, universities, even our other groups, is where I always find that a lot of people feel they are just not good enough, they don't look right, they don't wear the right clothes, or other things. Is saying that I believe the most important part in life is to know that there's only one of you on this earth, no one else like you. And so that makes you then unique and special. Not better than, but unique and special. Accept who you are and come to peace with who you are. And then obviously the next part is very, very important in terms of foundation in my lifetime has been attitude, passion, work ethic, but will follow is success. And then a lot of times when people are negative, I share with them, I was there when the world was at war. I've seen bodies that were laying around and being shot when I was between 3 and 5 years old. And I've seen that. I've seen my family being affected by war. And for some people that think, okay, you got war is over, everything go back to normal. It doesn't. It may take generations. It will never ever be the same again. And so I do not, and at the risk of trying to be interpreted as being political, I do not appreciate people saying, well, I'll take your country and I'll make it one of mine, and I'll take this country and that country. And the lack of respect is precisely what created Europe from mid-1930s till 1945 and generations beyond. Had killed 60
Well, and
million people.
that's the whole premise in my viewpoint of us being here together.
Exactly.
I am here, you are here, someone in Africa is here, someone in Afghanistan is here, someone in the Ukraine is here, someone in Russia is here, someone in Thailand is here. We're all just people. We're just all people.
Exactly.
And we're born into wherever we're born into. But though in my country, I have different rights than other people, and I have definitely a different life than other people. When you strip it all away, I am just a human being,
Exactly.
like anybody else.
Exactly.
And that place of, I will respect you in your experience, in your belief system, in your reality. There was a moment where my mom thought that the helicopters flying over the house were coming to get her. And my dad, he did what any person would do. Like, Jenny, it's all in your head. You're crazy. They're not coming to get you. I was 12 and I knew it wasn't working. And I asked myself, what does she need? She needed to feel safe.
Yeah.
It's a huge human need. So I grabbed my blue blankie Bambi, and I threw it over her head, and I said, they're not going to get you, Mommy. They're not going to get you. And I just held her while she was shaking and trembling and shaking and trembling. When she came out, she looked at me, and her eyes seemed to say, you believe me, which I didn't. I didn't think the helicopters were coming to get her, but I didn't need to fight her in her reality. I just needed to try to make her reality, if I could, a little less scary, a little more connected, possibly a little bit safer. You're not in this alone, Mommy.
Exactly.
And that just created a complete shift inside of me. And that's where my experience, like yours, came from all you've been through. Mine came from that. Oh, we do live different realities. And if I can care about yours, if I can respect you in yours, then there's a bridge. And that's the bridge of compassion. That's the bridge of respect. That's the bridge of, I am not better, you are not better, we're just unique. And how do we do this together? I think that's why on so many levels our hearts speak our own story, but there's that parallel. There's how do we coexist and not destroy each other or denounce each other or rip each other apart. Okay, so my IQ is this, your IQ is this. Okay. Okay. That doesn't mean better or worse. It just means this is me. This is you. And how do I help support, love, encourage you in who you are?
And it is so important for you to share your experience with people watching us from around the world, because your situation was not unique and is not unique, but it gives them inspiration as to who you are and who you became as a result of it, as a foundation. And it's still very much part of you even today, and it will be until the day you die. At the same time, from my perspective, is that we saw all these things happening with the Germans that as a result, killed 60 million people in Europe over that period. But the other part about it is that as a child growing up, very quickly we were in touch again with Germany and with the German people, because it was not them that were, they became victims as well of a dictator that was ruthless and steered them in that direction. And so at a great cost, they learned from it, but they became and still are today. If we are in that part of Europe, if there are no more borders, we drive right through from Germany into Holland or into the EU, is showing how people with different backgrounds, speaking different languages in a lot of cases, can work together, and hopefully we can build up that. And then on the same time, Heather, be honest with you, as I sit back, it gives me a perspective that is different than most, because I've seen the other side as what can happen, and that we all can become victims of ruthless dictators that for whatever reason, some of the things that we now see in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, and how precious we are in North America with all the things that we have here, all the beauty and all the bounty, how special it can be, and hopefully we will preserve it.
I hope to God we do. Yeah.
Heather, as usually, was an amazing podcast. We stay in touch, and for all those people watching us from around the world, for Heather, before we go, make sure you have your contact points, that people that want to get a hold of you, get your as a client potentially, show us how they can contact you.
The easiest place is my website. So www.drheatherbrowne.com. So just Dr. Heather Browne with an E. Everything is on there. My TEDx, my book, my program, my newsletter, my blog, everything. So feel free. And if you have questions, please reach out. I love to hear from people.
And then your book is available in all the major media areas. Did you do
Amazon and Barnes.
Did you do an Audible as well, or of the book?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Hopefully down the road. Yeah.
Okay, and then you're podcasting actively.
And writing.
And writing. And so for all those people watching us, subscribe to our podcast, because it encourages us to know we're doing the right thing. Or if you have suggestions that we do to other things, or in addition to this, we both do different podcasting from around the world, and subscribe to it. It encourages us. Share it with others. Like it. Make comments. And again, Heather, it was a pleasure as usual, and we'll stay in touch. I love your book, and I'm have it in my bag. So every time I'm in the airplane, I'm started reading it, and it's one of those books, you know, once you start, it's very difficult to put it away, and so
Good.
it's one of those that you want to stay awake for because you want to read the next chapter.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. And I look forward to reading your next one when it comes out as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Heather. Take care.
Bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.